My partner is neglecting his nephew. It's ruining our relationship.
Not the nephew.
Anyone else. 4 years ago, I met Bob, 40 male. Bob had recently become the guardian of his nephew Ben after the passing of Ben's parents in a car accident. Ben is the same age as my son, Jason, 11 at the time, now 15. By the way, this comes from Unique Emergency 3407, and if you want to submit your own stories, go to r/OK Storytime subreddit. So, at first, it seemed perfect. I was over the moon at finding a man who was not put off by the prospect of taking on a soon-to-be teenage stepson. Jason's father is not in the picture. Despite having very different personalities, the boys got along from the beginning, so Bob and Ben moved into my house within less than a year. Ben was always a quieter, more creative kid, whereas Jason is more athletic and boisterous. From the start, I got the sense that Bob understood Jason's way of being more than he did Ben's. At first, he would take them both to sports games, but Ben obviously had no interest, so pretty soon he just took Jason. At the time, it seemed like a natural choice. Ben was bored at the games, and Jason honestly reveled in having all of Bob's attention. After that, things started unraveling. As they grew older, the differences between the boys became more obvious. Their choices of clothing, hairstyle, friends, music, hobbies, etc. And so did Bob's preference. He started making little comments comparing them and encouraging Ben to be more like Jason. No.
Oh.
Stop.
Man.
Comparison is the thief of joy. Stop.
Exactly.
Stop thieving my joy. At first, it seemed like he was trying to be helpful, thinking Jason's way of being was healthier. He's more outgoing, has a more active social life, because that's what he remembered from his own experience. But after a while, there was a clear snideness which was impossible not to hear. My son has always had a strong protective streak and a sense of fairness. Despite their differences in the late age they were introduced, he and Ben are very close. Jason's reaction to Bob's remarks favoring him was to take Ben's side. He stopped going to games with Bob and for a while became openly hostile on Ben's behalf. That stopped once he and Bob had a major argument. Jason backed down at that point because he told me he realized that if he kept making himself unpleasant, Bob and I might break up, in which case Ben would have to leave too. Oh, that's a lot burden to put on a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
Or younger at the time. Since then, with a few exceptions, he has been coldly civil. Meanwhile, Bob has come to believe Ben is attracted to the same gender based on what I consider spurious evidence, not that it matters to me whether he is or not. He wanted to send him to a military-style reform school, and when I vetoed that, his behavior towards Ben escalated to subtle kind of downright nastiness. Needless to say, all of the above strained Ben and my relationship to the breaking point and then broke it. Seeing his ongoing behavior toward a child who needs him, I can no longer look at him with anything but disgust. The thought of him touching me makes my skin crawl, and I desperately want him out of my house. We're not married, and it's still in my sole name, thank God, but now I have the same problem Jason was worried about. If I end the relationship and punt Bob out, Ben will have to go too, since legally I have no tie to him whatsoever. He's 15 now, and although he has borne everything by stoically ignoring Bob, I can't in good conscience let that man be solely responsible for him. For what it's worth, I have always tried to stick up for Ben and get Bob to see that there are many types of boys in the world, and that all of them are equally okay. Not to mention, I don't think Jason would ever forgive me if I let Ben go. I would happily take guardianship of Ben if I could. Even if Bob made no financial contribution, we could manage if we cut back on luxuries. My concern is that I am far from sure Bob would agree. However he personally feels about Ben, Ben is still his flesh and blood, and Bob feels strongly about that. To be honest, I think that's part of the reason he resents Ben so much. Ben is the last of the line and isn't turning out how Bob thinks his family should be represented. If I were to start a conversation along those lines and Bob refused to allow Ben to stay, it would be incredibly difficult to roll back. The idea of having to continue to play his supportive wife to stop him from leaving on his own accord for another 2.5 years until Ben turns 18 sounds like a nightmare. But the alternative is worse. What is the best way to manage and get through this? And there is an update. Oh, that's so tricky. That's so tricky.
Oh, man. Suddenly I feel very underqualified for this
like,
question.
I don't know. My first thought, which might be totally impossible, is like, can you adopt Ben? Because
Right.
I know, like, when you're in, because it seems like they're married.
Yeah.
So
True.
I'm like, sometimes you're able to do that as long as the kid agrees or
'Cause
something.
this isn't their kids, right? This is the
The nephew.
nephew.
Yes.
So it's Bob's siblings' kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know how that would work. but I wonder if you could look into that. It
Yeah,
might take a while.
Because I'm thinking too, I'm like, even if she could stay in contact with it's Ben, right? That if she could even stay in contact with Ben, but if things go poorly in this divorce, then Bob probably would not like that very much.
Yeah, he might not let that happen.
Yeah. So, oh man, that's hard.
Tricky.
But also, he's 15.
He's 15.
So maybe they can have at least some sort of communication.
Yeah,
That doesn't need to be known. You know what I mean?
hopefully.
Probably
But there
sneaky.
is an update, so maybe someone gave better advice.
Yeah, please.
I posted about my family problem about a month ago and was bowled over by the amount of kind and extremely helpful comments I got. Someone requested an update, so I'm posting now to tell you what's happened since. To be honest, it's also to unburden myself. The boys are really sweet, but I obviously can't talk to them about these things. And there aren't a lot of people in my life I feel comfortable sharing all the details with. I suppose I'm embarrassed. The week after my original post, I met with a family lawyer I know to go over options. I actually wrote down the legal suggestions posted here to discuss with her. Unfortunately, after going over each one and several others in detail, we had to conclude that while some might technically be feasible, they would either take too long to be practical or require things from Bob or Ben that, for various reasons, were not ideal. Following the meeting, I was mulling things over and decided to take a long, hard look at our finances to see what might be affordable as a compromise. I considered sending Ben to a good boarding school and paying tuition up front so that if I left Bob, it would be easier and cheaper for him to leave Ben there rather than move him to a different school. Smart. Anyway, I went over our financial records with a fine-tooth comb, and that's when I discovered Bob was cheating on me.
Whoa, new issue.
It's a new issue, and I'm unfortunately not shocked because this man seems terrible.
Yeah.
And had been for the entirety of our relationship.
Dang, man.
It turns out that prior to Ben's parents passing, Bob had been about to move in with another woman. This woman didn't want kids, so when Bob was suddenly faced with taking care of Ben or seeing him placed in foster care, she made it clear she would not be involved.
Oh, dang.
For the record, I can't say I blame her. I love my boys with all my heart, but asking someone who never wanted kids to parent a bereaved 11-year-old she has never met is not in anyone's best interest, in my opinion. When I confronted him about the affair, he didn't even attempt to deny it. He seemed ashamed, good, and just asked what happened next. I told him that next, he was going to get his stuff and get out of my house. But first, he needed to ask Ben if he wanted to go or stay because it wouldn't be fair to disrupt the poor kid's life any further.
Ooh.
Whoa!
Dang.
Freak, OP's playing chess right now.
Yeah.
Dang.
That's a good way to put it, though.
Yeah, it's like, well, now you've done the wrong.
Yeah. It's on you now, sir.
Like terrible, terrible circumstances.
Right.
But also maybe the best way this could have gone to get Ben into a safe place.
Yeah.
For you.
Right.
Super, but...
And then I think also using a kind of excuse of being like, well, his life has just been so crazy.
Yeah, and like finding out that you're cheating on me.
Yeah.
It's like,
so like
guilt tripping.
Maybe this can be a way that his life can stay normal.
Yeah.
For the time being.
Ben quickly said he preferred to stay, and Bob seemed frankly relieved.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Dang.
Like again, this for OP, but maybe the easiest way it could have gone.
Yeah.
He moved out that weekend, and I haven't seen him since. We've been in touch by text to discuss financial arrangements, though, and last week he sent me money to cover Ben's basic expenses. Nothing close to child support, but under the circumstances, I'll take it and be glad. From his attitude, I take it that he's seeing this as a long-term thing. But even if he doesn't, according to the family lawyer, his leaving Ben with me, even for a while, along with Ben's age and the fact that Bob is his guardian rather than his father, would make it easier to build a case for Ben to stay, even if Bob does try to fight it. The lawyer is confident that such a battle could be won, or at least dragged out until Ben is 18, and it doesn't matter anymore. That, as you can imagine, has been an enormous relief. That makes it that much harder to admit that finding out about Bob has still hit me hard. Of course it has. I mean, like,
yeah.
Even though that you were trying to do this for Ben, like, you just found out your partner was cheating on you.
Yeah, I think even if you already know that he's like not someone you want to be around, still finding out that he's cheating is like, just as heartbreaking.
The fact is that even though I was absolutely done with him and wanted him out, there was a time I truly believed he wanted to be with me and that we could build a life together. I knew a relationship wasn't a romance for the ages or anything like that, but it was by far the best I'd had since before my son was born. And I really thought we cared for and valued one another. Now I realize that all he ever wanted from me was a mother for Ben. He as good as admitted it, and in retrospect, it makes complete sense. That's why he never wanted to get married or buy into my house, even though I offered. Though now, of course, I am grateful. He wanted to make it as easy as possible to split from me once Ben was old enough to no longer require my services. I think it might even explain why he was so hard on Ben and grasping at straws for a reason to send him away. I never expected it of him based on what else I knew, or I never would have been with him. But if he was blaming Ben for getting in the way of his life and simultaneously feeling guilty for it, that could turn a mild-mannered person mean, I think. Maybe he even thought if Ben was away most of the time, the other woman would be willing to compromise for a few years. I don't know. I've even been wondering whether he decided to pursue me before we even met. The boys met first through an extracurricular where they became friends. It's possible that Jason mentioned my being single in passing, allowing Bob to identify me as potentially suitable before we ever met. By the way, I think it'd be suitable for you guys to listen to full episodes of stories just like this. Just go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast app and search up OK Storytime. There is a little bit left to this story, but unfortunately it worked out in the best and also worst way.
Yeah, there were some bumps along the road, but at the end of the day, you got where you needed to go.
You did. Yeah. That was a bad journey, but
it's only up from here.
Hopefully. I'm sorry this is such a mopey post. I truly am grateful for the way things worked out. I think it's the best possible solution for everyone under the circumstances, and not one I could have achieved without Bob's help. And the boys have been wonderful. They didn't know I was trying to get Bob out anyway, so they've been treating me very gently, or as gently as you can expect teenage boys to be anyway, and trying to pretend they aren't thrilled Bob is gone when I'm in the room. I'm glad of that, to be honest. I am so grateful he's gone and that Ben is still safe here with us. I just need a bit of time to really remember it, I think. And that is the end of that story.
Wow.
Oof.
Wow.
Ooh-wee. Ouch, ouch,
Dang.
ouch.
That's just so hard on poor Ben.
Yeah.
To be just kind of treated as this obstacle from Bob.
Absolutely.
Of getting like a partner. Like, come on, man. That's
truly,
that's really, really crappy. But I'm glad that Ben is with OP and that they can be a good little family and she can take care of him, because I know she's gonna treat him better.
So much better.
I just know it.
Just know it.